It is a good morning in that it's Pride Day, but it is also a day when we have to address serious things. In case you couldn't pick out my voice in the choir, you are looking at a basso profondo in a dress. Now, I doubt most of you have a problem with that. Fourth U has a tradition of welcoming LGBTQ people and causes, and I'm just vain enough to think that some of you might even look forward to my fabulous annual outfits. Thank you. But a powerful and cruel block of people in this nation do have a problem with that. Sexual minorities now find ourselves on the front lines of an intensifying culture war as the government bans or intimidates anything that smacks of gender ideology. Last week's Supreme Court ruling denying parents the right to decide their child's medical needs slammed the latest blow to transgender rights, which have become the proxy scapegoat for all who reject the idea that biology is destiny. Related assaults are being launched against women and minorities of all stripes on the rainbow flag. The question is, what can we do about it? One essential answer is public social action, but that's not our speaker's concern this morning. There is an equally urgent need to focus on the pastoral as well as the political, the private, personal effects, psychological and spiritual, of unprecedented and threatening current events. Although the term is sometimes overused, we are all, and queers especially, suffering from trauma, the intense emotional and physical shock of catastrophic loss. So, what attitudes, practices, and resources might help us as individuals to cope internally with this despairing situation? From what sources can we, minorities and majorities alike, draw consolation, reassurance, and hope for a better future? If it's any comfort, we're hardly the first to face this problem. The biblical prophet Jeremiah, agonized by the Israelites' suffering during the Babylonian conquest and destruction of Jerusalem, cried out for help and hope. Is there no balm in Gilead? Is there no physician there? Why then is there no recovery for the health of my people? Jeremiah's answer was that the proper balm, or soothing medicine, is following God's commandments. For sexual minorities and their families, that prescription might produce unacceptable side effects. But we, like everyone in this congregation, are desperately seeking spiritual and psychic relief. Spoiler alert, I cannot prophesy some marvelous new technique for inner uplift. Each of us has to find our own sources of strength and solace, be it yoga or prayer or retail therapy. But we can all draw the waters of consolation from a few time-tested wells. One great fountain of inspiration is religious history and wisdom from many traditions. That was the point of Spencer's evocation of the biblical cry for refuge. It helps to know that we are not unique, that suffering unfortunately persists across all space and time, that others have felt pain and yearning like ours and lived to write about it. The psalm that Spencer read, which begins out of the depths, the Latin for that is de profundis, and that that phrase was used by Oscar Wilde when he wrote his famous letter from Reading Jail, where he was imprisoned for sodomy. And he too was crying out for some kind of larger authority to understand what he was feeling. Another path to inspiration is secular, cultural, or artistic expressions that speak to our concerns. Poems, pictures, plays, novels, movies, music offer both a sense of fellow feeling and a range of possible responses. Later in this service, you'll hear Greg and Amy read a contemporary poem calling for serious moral and political choices. On the other hand, the playful opening words that Lucy read remind us that we also need to have fun, aptly called recreation. A third source of comfort is the sympathy and understanding of people who share our experiences, feelings, and values, which brings us to the collective aspect of healing. What do we as a congregation need to do to support each other? What balm can we bring to our own fearful Gilead? Here again, I have no radical new epiphany. Fourth U is called upon to offer the same things we have always provided: non-judgmental openness and a commitment to working for justice. That poster in the window, DEI lives here, is no mere slogan. Diversity joined this congregation in the 1950s and never left. Back then, Fourth U was quietly known around the city to closeted gay and lesbian couples who would sometimes arrange sham marriages across the borders to each other. And then they would go as heterosexual couples to the front door of Fourth U on Sunday morning, walk in, regroup into the real couples, and sit side by side in one of the few public havens for people like that. Later, the church hosted a long-running social and consciousness-raising group in the 1960s and 70s titled Lib Women, Lib Men, Liberating. In the 2010s, we produced an annual drag cabaret and talent show, which some of you, I can see, remember, hosted by the stylish Grand Duchess Anastasia Saslova, who I'm very attached to. Up to this year, our chapter of Interweave, the UU Queer Caucus, sponsored a monthly book club. And last month, we were recertified as a welcoming congregation, an acknowledgement of our commitment to arranging a series of queer-themed events and services over the year and supporting gay organizations. Well, what next for us? In practical terms, as our opening words today put it, Fourth U can offer a gathering place where we don't have to shoulder these burdens alone. Please remember that a pastoral care associate is on hand every Sunday, ready to listen to anyone who needs an ear and to make any kind of referrals to further assistance. Such supportive social spaces encourage the sense of community with like-minded people that is essential to mental health for marginalized minorities, and of course for everyone. So let us continue to celebrate and reinforce all that is positive across the LGBTQ+ spectrum. In theological terms, we can comfort the afflicted by countering the reactionary claim that patriarchal Christian beliefs are some kind of eternal truth to be continually restored. We can keep on witnessing to our non-creedal and individualistic values which celebrate rather than condemn sexual variation, and which encourage people to blossom in whatever direction they choose. We can preach the value of authenticity, the individual being true to oneself, over the imposition of a single universal code of behavior. Our congregation has long called itself a community of memory, resistance, and hope. All three of those ideals take on renewed urgency in the current crisis. Let us live up to them by keeping alive the liberating idea that things can always be otherwise from the present grim reality. That is the great fear of authoritarians, that someone somewhere might realize that what the powerful are telling them is not the only or permanent truth, and that change is always conceivable. Finally, we must not let the world denigrate or deny the motivating force of all sexual minorities, which is love. Love and desire are universal, genetically programmed human needs, which is why there can never be a Hitler-type final solution to the presence of sexual nonconformists in the human community. Trump can erase the word transgender from all government documents, but the fact remains, as the Pride March chant goes, we're here, we're queer, get used to it. We UUs must preach to our own members and to the wider world that sexuality in all its forms is not a problem, but an opportunity, a fountain of joy and love, the body's conduit to the spirit. It is no crime because there is no victim, and thus it is not the state's business. In fact, it might even inspire good behavior. In his epistle to the Romans, the Apostle Paul, possibly a repressed homosexual himself, declared the simple truth that, quote, love does no harm to a neighbor. Therefore, love is the fulfillment of the law. There is a balm in Gilead. Indeed, a variety of balms for soothing the deep spiritual dis-ease of this historical moment. We must, as Jeremiah urged, hold fast to our values, keep promoting them, and resist those who would force us to behave otherwise. Let us offer what the Jewish scriptures call the tree of life, sheltering and supporting those who feel battered, disrespected, and hopeless. We're down, but not out. We need to lick our wounds and apply whatever psychic ointment we can find. So let us all help one another to survive, to fight another day. So be it.